Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the three-dimensional frequency. I sit here today in the Floridian Plains in my little rental home. We're hopping around on a weekly basis to find a little bit of distortions shed as we hop around, as we're finding that staying in one place for far too long makes us far too comfortable. And we want to keep the excitement going, especially because we're homeschooling the kids, and to have a differentiation of scenery and a differentiation in activities is what best mentally stimulates them in this moment in time. So my family and I are strategically moving around the vicinity of where our mission work is. As everything in Florida, as you may know or you may not know, is a driving distance away, is no more or no less than a few hours away, as the state is an elongated shape, and it's just so easy to drive from coast to coast, which is what we found. And we found that we're getting used to being on the move, and we're getting used to traveling to different destinations to coherently receive the simultaneously needed strategies within the educational scope of the children's mental well-being in this moment, if that even makes sense. But as I sit here in my new front yard, you may see in the background that there's barren lands, but that is actually the land of a church behind me. And I strategically face the camera away to not be distracted with the background and the scenery, and I have the cinematic view turned on. But as I'm rambling away, I probably should have already introduced today's video, which is so significant to the topics that I've been rambling on about. So I promise you it's leading somewhere. And that is the children's education. Within this moment in time of the incoming ascension energies, you will find it difficult to keep your kids in an education system of dependency on the agenda of the elites. And I say that only pertaining to those of you who have awakened to your destiny, who have awakened to your truth. And even if you have not, you may have an inkling, you may have an idea that something is off within our societal structure. As the societal structure was designed to keep you confined into your own very little bubble, into society's very own strategic coherence of control tactics that the elites have so carefully crafted to keep you and your mouth shut, to keep you coherently agreeing to their strategies of exploitation, their strategies of exploration within the consciousness, within the scope of the darker side of consciousness. They visualize a strategy of separation as the main strategic tactic to divide a society in cultures, in emotional well-being, in colors of the skin, in sexual identity, in monetary scopes, in every single scope that you can ever think of within the North American landscape and the population that we are so used to residing in. And I say this because all over the world, you will find that each country has a specific agenda to morph and skew its population into that of an obeying mass of people, of generalization of people who do not question the agenda, who do not question the motives of the government structures, who go along with the schemes of the elite's agenda. But the overarching truth of the matter is that no matter where you are, the agenda is always the same. The agenda may take on different forms in wavelengths of energetic frequency, different forms in strategic development of details of how they will carry out certain strategies to coherently encompass one's consciousness into the darkness that is subsiding within humanity's fields of distortions within Gaia's three-dimensional frequency. And that is so that the elites can keep in control of an entire societal structure of human beings who are so unsuspecting of the ascension energies that are incoming and are essentially about to hit a humanity that is so distorted within the energetic frequency in which they sit in. And as I sit here and explain to you our reality field, you may be scratching your head, you may be in disbelief, you may not understand the concepts that I speak of, and that is quite okay, as you are a part of this distortion field through and through. You've been raised within a collective, within a society of perceived normalcy. So as I speak of your distortion field, even as a distortion field, you may find yourself feeling a bit offensive as to the way that I'm describing your reality field, my reality field, and the overall reality fields within Gaia's sphere. But as time progresses, as we can never run away from the ascension energies that are incoming, as God's consciousness is you, and God's consciousness is I, and God's consciousness has decided to reel in parts and pieces of its consciousness, of the entirety of the whole, of its consciousness, scattered out in the ethers in parts and pieces of endlessness, of endless distortions, back into the whole perceived. And as this process is long as it is arduous, this process has already begun. And that's what this ascension is all about. The beginning of an epic time, the beginning of a cohesive time, the beginning of a distorted time of doubts, of a distorted time of questioning, of a distorted time of self-inflicting hatred, of self-inflicted love, of self-inflicted separation. As we grasp with our identity and as we grasp to hold on to our reality field that we've been used to for far too long, you will feel turmoil from all levels of distortions creeping up on your energetic frequency. And that is because, ladies and gentlemen, the frequency that you've been sitting in has been the darkness all along. And the baseline point for this frequency has never been that of a reality field, of a God's consciousness that God is used to sitting in. As God's true baseline frequency is that of a neutrality perspective. And so you see, ladies and gentlemen, within this neutrality perspective, what you may go through, what I may go through, what your enemies may encounter on a day-to-day basis, what the victims might decipher to be their reality field on a day-to-day basis, on a month-to-month basis, on a yearly basis, doesn't really matter. As a part of the whole is every single fractal of God's consciousness, regardless of whether or not they choose to experience the darkness and encompass the darkness within, or hold the light and encompass the brightness that is so inherently within God's consciousness of choosing. But regardless of where you span on this overarching journey of ours that we call the discovery of self, within the encompassment of the darkness and brightness of a societal structure of wholeness, you will see an overarching truth of distortions from every single perspective, from every single aspect of distortions that you can ever perceive to be true. As the frequencies are endless and the pockets of distortions are multicultural, are forever arching defensive and decisive in the way of your location, in the way of your ethnicity, in the way of your age, in the way you determine to decipher yourself to be real and to be true within any singularity of a scope of a cultural idealism, within any moment in time that shifts and skews throughout your whole entire lifetime. And as there are an endless amounts of consciousness coherently fractaled out within a reality field, of non-distortions, of distortions, and of an endless amount of reality fields, of pockets, of layers of frequencies of reality fields, you will find yourself sitting as you choose within a multitude of layers of fields, within a multitude of lifetimes fractaled out by your oversoul, of all-encompassing lifetimes, of your current lifetime, of all congruent lifetimes, of parallel lifetimes, as time is really not a thing in the quantum realm, of past lifetimes, of present lifetimes, of future lifetimes. And the trajectory in the energetic scope of things that you choose to sit in, that you choose to encompass, has a theme, has a perspective. Within all of your lifetimes upon lifetimes of coherence, within our quantum realm, your soul blueprint holds the perspective of the traversed feats within your reality field in which you choose to traverse, in which you choose to experience, in which you chose to fractal out as a part of God's consciousness, cohesively, to be, to become, and to finally merge back into the whole of the oneness where you came from at the end of this arduous journey of the exploration of self within the darkness of the self that is so inherently true to each and every fractaled soul within this quantum verse and beyond. And as I sit and speak of the darkness within the self, I do not speak of this darkness as a separate entity. I do not speak of the devil as something outside of ourselves. I do not speak of the negative frequencies and the dark polarities of our reality field as something that is attainable, as something that is unattainable, as something that is unprojected onto the light, as something that is projected onto the overarching light. I do not speak of it as an alien of sorts that we can never be able to figure out. I do not speak of it as a projected field of energy to be scared of or to be mortified of. The essence and the results of getting too close to the similarity of a consciousness, of an essence, within the negative polarity of the spectrum of our consciousness. I do not speak of it as an entity outside of the self, because all along, as we traverse these frequencies within the three-dimensional realm and above and beyond into the quantum realm, this energy that has traveled down through dimensional frequencies to the lowest dimensional fields for us to experience from the closeness of home, from the farness of the angelic realm, from the farthest edges of the realm in which we call home, has always been a frequency of self, has always been a frequency of distortions within the self that we chose to compartmentalize once upon a time. As God is made up of 50% brightness and 50% darkness within our reality field. As the God that had fractaled us off is a polarity within a spectrum of brightness and darkness. And as we all hold the blueprint of a consciousness of the God who had fractaled us off into this overarching exploration of self, within this time, within the three-dimensional frequency, we will explore that blueprint through and through, to the end of time, to the beginning of time, to the middle of no time, as time is not even a thing within this quantum realm. And you may ask me, what took you so long? What took God so long? What took all of this exploration of self so long to come to an arduous end in which we've been waiting to encompass, in which we've been waiting to traverse out of, in which we've been waiting for an exit point for far too long? It seems like an endless amounts of lifetimes, encompassments within the three-dimensional frequency. It seems like a forever arching, endless amounts of reincarnation cycles that never ever ends, within the pain, within the wars, within the distortions of the sufferings. And finally, within the reality field, within the three-dimensional reality field of Gaia. And divine unity is what We have become within this whole entire exploration of self, and that unity has never left us. So the word becoming is not really a concept of any concept, except to erase your reality field and start anew and start over into a new exploration of self within our very own quantum verse. And that is exactly what a God's consciousness that had so arduously fractaled itself off to become the consciousness of our quantum verse decided to do on an arduous night, on an arduous day, to encompass all that it is not within our little bubble, to fractal off pieces of its consciousness on this grand exploration of self, on the greatest and grandest exploration of self that you can ever fathom to be true. And as we explore the furthest arches of our consciousness, as we traverse the multidimensional, the interdimensional aspects of our soul's being, of our soul's belonging, we have come to the end of our journey, ladies and gentlemen. And I say this with much truth within the words that I speak. The most truthfulness that you can ever gain from a conversation, from an aspect of the self, from a projection within the self, from the overall, all-encompassing unity consciousness of a fractaled soul that you have ever come into contact with. And as we come into the end of our distortion field, you will find yourself elevating into a brighter place, into a lighter place of consciousness forgotten. As you struggle to come to terms with the remembrance of all of your past lifetimes, with all of your past cohesiveness of a whole, of an oversoul, of overarching lessons learned in the middle of the darkest night ever since the fractaling into this reality field, to experience all that you are not, to cry, to separate, to carry through all of these lessons of separation, lessons of non-love, lessons of non-unity, lessons of confusion, lessons of distortions within a realm through and through encompassed by unity consciousness. And the God that I speak of, the God that you are, is the overarching God's consciousness that we've always been in energetic frequency, but just not in distortion fields. And as you listen to my video, as you begin to awaken to your reality field, you too will begin to come to an understanding, will begin to come to a realization, will begin to come into the encompassment of the frequency of the divine unity of this God's consciousness above and beyond our quantum verse. And the God's consciousness that decided to fractal out a part of its consciousness to encompass the entirety of our quantum verse. As your soul blueprint is through and through holding memories of this consciousness, as this consciousness has been you through and through for this whole entire time that you felt so separated, that you felt so distorted, that you fell into this distortion field of perception to experience, to love, to live, to fight, to breathe, and finally to be that of the separate entity that you perceive for yourself to be. And as I sit here in the tranquility of it all, perhaps you will come to this realization prior to the ascension. Perhaps you won't. But either way, the end of your road will lead to the same place that I came from, that you came from, that we all came from. As reality fields are long, reality fields are short, but reality fields, ladies and gentlemen, were never meant to last forever. As forever is a very long time, is an overarching amount of forever time. And within a place of time verse, within a place of the only quantum verse, within our societal structures, within our layer of energetic frequency, within the three-dimensional frequency, that has dictated a method to count the seconds, the minutes, the hours, to measure a time that is so non-existing. You and I sit within this place. And within this place, we will retract ourselves back into the place of endlessness, of no ends in sight, of forever expansiveness, of the expansion of the overarching expansiveness of our soul. And as I sit and sip on my water, I come to the realization of how blue the sky is today. Typically, we see a lot of streaks in the sky around this time due to the cloud seeding, but right now I do see one. I see one plane with a long white trail, but surprisingly enough, there's no clouds in the sky. It's a beautiful day. I hear the birds chirping, and as this reality field is what it is, within any moment in time, the energy flowing around me, flowing around us, is an energy of okayness, is an energy of peace, is an energy of overarching compatibility of the soul's arduous journey to make it back to the source consciousness in which we all belong to. And as this energy becomes rampant and picks up in the speed of all that it is not, to carry an entire civilization into the essence and into the realization of all that it is, you will begin to awaken to your reality field in a way that feels distorted, in a way that feels so real, in a way that feels so false, in a way that'll make you question reality and question your sanity and question the meaning of life and the meaning of all of this, of all that you see, of the grass, of the sky, of the air, of the trajectories of society, of the elites, of the school systems, of your children's well-being, of your family structure, of your family, of your friends, of your co-workers. You will question it all. And it is all leading up to one place, ladies and gentlemen. And as your children get up on a daily basis and spend their entire day in an education system crafted by the elites that are so used to keeping an entire collective in the dark in regards to their heritage, in regards to their belonging, in regards to their spiritual well-being, in regards to every single layer of societal structure, of truth, of honesty, of distortions, of dishonesty that you can ever perceive to be true. The overarching source of the negative frequency carried out by the elites comes from a place of darkness within a collective of God's consciousness. And as this darkness has reigned over our exploration field, has reigned over the three-dimensional frequency of Gaia's sphere, for as long as you can remember, for as long as I can perceive, and for as long as it's been here within this reality field of exploration, which is a forever arching time within the self of the consciousness in which we belong in. It has been here for far too long. It has kept a collective from ascending back into a God's consciousness in which it came from. It has been in control of the energetic frequency with your dimensional field for a very, very, very long time within the time verse that we reside in. And as its time is running out, it is beginning to fluctuate its frequency into the brightness of the self, into the darkness of the self, into an exploration of the darkness so deep as the brightness washes through its surroundings to lift it intrinsically back into the light of a reality field of the reality in which we come from. It's fighting for its life. It's fighting for its belonging. It's fighting for its right to be dominant within a reality field that it has had control over for far too long. And as we begin to awaken one by one, we will come to this realization of their strategies and their tactics. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to declare to you that we are being attacked in the home front in a way that is so invisible to the eye, to the senses, within every single way that you can decipher and determine to be true had you not been awakened to your reality field of distortions. And within the home front, I can tell you the most important asset of a collective, of a society, of a humanoid civilization are that of our children. Our children are our future. Our children hold a light so steeped in non-distortions. Our children who have been granted to us from the very same God's consciousness that had fractaled us off, decided to drop down into our distortion field to elevate our consciousness, to help carry Gaia into her next level of incarnation. And as they sit in an educational system of brainwashing, of distortions, day in and day out, as they sit in the distortions within the darkness of the self, within our dimensional frequency, so shall you not realize the encompassment of all that they shall suffer through, the encompassment of all that they will learn, that they will take on, that they will carry on through generations of cohesiveness submerged in control, of cohesiveness submerged in the darkness of what is. And as you come to the realization of this, you may have to make the hardest decision that you've ever had to make, which is to pull them out of an education system that has been supporting your family through the years, through the days, and through the years and months to come. This is a reality field that will dawn upon many families, many light-working families, many non-light-working families, many families of humanity, as they come to a realization of the control tactics within the control systems within their society that has kept them in the dark about a reality field that is so intrinsically a part of each and every one of them, that is so intrinsically a part of each and every one of you. And as you come into this realization, you will want to protect your children, you will want to wrap them in your light, you will want to keep them at home where they belong. You will want to keep them in the light. You will want to nurture the light that is within them, to direct them towards the frequency of a God's consciousness that has always been there. And no matter what you choose, no matter what you decide, as a parent, as a guardian, as a leader of your family, of your society, no matter what you decide for your children, for these sensitive children, for these young minds, for these leaders of future humanity, just know within your hearts, within your souls, within your minds, that no matter what you decide, it can never take away from them the inherent goodness inside their soul. It can never rip out the carpet from under their feet of the mission that they dropped down to accomplish. It can never change them for who they were meant to be. Just know that these children are born of a higher vibrational frequency and that they are already compatible physically, mentally, spiritually with the 5-dimensional frequency that we will begin to anchor in soon time. And that they will walk their path as it has already been laid out in front of them to walk. And all they have to do is walk. But regardless of the decisions that you make for the best of your family, of your society, of your aunts and your uncles' households, of the households of the enemies down the street, of the household of your very own household inside your house, just know that the energetic frequency around you is shifting regardless of what you do, regardless of how much you try to shift into the brightness or into the darkness of a reality field that is so inherently beginning to separate into 2 distortion fields, one filled with love and light and one filled with the darkness, the separation of the all-encompassing self that has been around, that we've been traversing for far too long. And as you come into the acceptance or the dis-acceptance or the non-believing or the anchoring into the distortion fields of the darkness that is so inherently a part of you and your field, that once and for all, the brightness is here to save humanity from the darkness, from the dark aspects of itself. And that once and for all, it is the end of the road. It is the end of the game. It is the end of a distortion field of all distortions, as we've been in this place for far too long. And as all reality fields are never meant to be forever, all reality fields are forever, and all lessons are meant to be learned. And all lessons within a distortion field of the three-dimensional frequency will carry home an essence so bright into the light of what is. And as you traverse your lessons within the three-dimensional frequency, within the darkness that you encompass, you will see the brightest light that you have ever seen, that you have ever known to be real, to be unreal, and you will submerge yourself within this light. As through and through, you've always been this light. Through and through, as you walk this reality field of distortions, as you walk this reality field of all that you are not within the darkness of the self, you have always been the light of a God's consciousness that had fractaled you off. In one arduous night, as it decided to descend down into this physicality of a being, of a distortion field, to encompass all that it is not, to then come to a point in a precipice of a road of distinction, of distortions shed, of distortions lost, to decide for itself that it no longer wanted to experience the darkness and that it's time to go home once and for final. And even as you decide for yourself that you no longer want to go home, that you don't believe there is a home, that your distortion field is so thick and you're comfortable where you're at, you have no choice, ladies and gentlemen. As choice is not a thing of a reality field in which you sit in, as choice was granted to you once upon a time, upon the embarkation of the biggest and grandest journey of your oversoul's journey, of your oversoul's overarching story, of your oversoul's overarching decision to descend into a quantum verse so devoid of the light in which it had been encompassing all of this time, to experience, to live, to love, and to finally bring home lessons upon lessons of relief, lessons upon lessons of joy, lessons upon lessons of cohesion found in the middle of the darkest night. And as you've decided for yourself, as you may have decided for yourself that you're comfortable where you're at, I'm here to tell you that the game is ending, the game is over, and God has decided to retract all of its consciousness back home for once and for final. And you have no choice. You can sink, you can swim, you can fight, you can sing, you can distort like no other being has ever distorted a reality field. You can control this reality field. You can control your distortions as far as you can run, as far as you can walk, as far as you can project your energy. But God is here and God will carry you home into the brightest light there has ever been. And when you reach the destination of home, the destination of where you came from, you will come to a memory of it all, of the reason why you fractaled out to begin with, of the unity that you have always been, of the trajectory of your soul's encompassment through this whole arduous journey of the game that I call life upon death, upon lifetimes upon death, of reincarnation cycles, that is finally coming to an end. And of the reasons why you never made it home sooner than you would have liked to make it home. As once you make it home to the brightest light in the quantum verse, to the brightest light of your soul's choosing, to the brightest light of your soul's being, you will never want to leave that place. Forever and for always, as you've always been that place, as you've always been that place in energetic frequency. And as you sit in an essence of the forgetfulness that you've been sitting in for far too long, you will come to this realization soon enough. As the ascension is here, as the ascension is near, as light workers are beginning to awaken to their destiny, and as light workers band together, as they find each other within the scope of Gaia's three-dimensional frequency, as they come into the encompassment of the memories that they hold, that they've held onto for this whole entire time that they've been living and shifting through the darkness. They will find each other. They will find me in my essence. They will find themselves in their essence, as the essence of me and the essence of them has never been of a separate distortion field from each other, as the essence of you and the essence of them has always been an entirety of a whole, within our field of distortions, within a distortion field so massive in feats, so wide in perceptions, so grand in all that it is not. And as we come into the realization of the unity of it all, of the consciousness that subsedes the consciousness of you, of I, of the higher realms, of the higher consciousness, of a God's consciousness, of the whole entirety of what it is. We will band together like no other force has ever seen possible. And the impossibility of it all will drive the consciousness of you, will drive the consciousness of I into a place of a God's deciphering of what is possible within any scope of a moment in time, within any frequency, within any layer of frequency within our quantum verse. As ladies and gentlemen, you are God, I am God. Yeshua is God, we are God through and through. And as I sit here in the energy field of Yeshua, as unity consciousness has always been what it's been, has never been what it's not, I sit with a message of hope. I project a message of light into a unity consciousness that is so overarchingly you, that is so overarchingly I, as we've never been separated in energetic frequency, but just in the perception field that you sit in within the bubble of the quantum verse, of the energetic frequency that you choose to sit in, that you chose to sit in once upon a time prior to fractaling from this oversoul of ours, of mine, of Yeshua's. And as you sit in your final destination within a quantum verse, so devoid of all that you are not, and so conclusive with all that you are, you will finally awaken to your truth, to your destiny, to your mission. The greatest and grandest overarching mission of an oversoul projected into a reality field of a three-dimensional frequency has never been so big, so all-encompassing of all that it is. And as the encompassment of it all smothers you at night, smacks you in the face in the day, transitions into your energy field as it expands and opens up your perception field to your true reality field, you will look at me in energy in the field of the quantum realm. We will meet in energy in all that we are. And you will tell me, Genesis, you've been right this whole entire time that I decided to doubt you. You've always been right, as I am you and you are me. And we are each other through and through. And we are Yeshua through and through. And as this God's consciousness has decided to come take you home, back into the aspect of the all in perception, as this God's consciousness had fractaled off on behalf of you, on behalf of I, on behalf of all of these light workers who will band together in a unity consciousness of the representation of this God's consciousness through and through. We will lift this reality field into its next level of incarnation, a place closer to God, a place closer to love, a place closer to unity than we've ever been in distance, than we've ever been in energetic frequency, than we've ever been in a place of all that we are not, to come into a realization of all that we have ever been. And as we come into this realization, we will be whole again. As we tranquilize the darkness within, we will be content again. As we overstep the 50% of the darkness of the distortions that we've been sitting in, that we've been breathing in, that we've been living through, we will through and through become that God's consciousness. Not just in frequency, but in the essence of all that it is not, to come into a realization of all that we've ever been, which is an aspect of the self, of the whole entirety of the consciousness, of the one and only consciousness, of an inconclusive, conclusive energetic field of consciousness that we've been in perception this whole entire time, sitting in a middle neutrality perspective of all that we are, all that we've ever been, and all that we shall ever be.